Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. We're going to talk about the Ultimatum that we've now seen the live stream from Path of Exile's Twitch streams release on, as well as the information we've seen about PoE2. Whew. I mean, the trailer is amazing. It really is. I will briefly touch upon PoE2 since it's just what we've seen. It looks amazing. Crossbows, spears, looks amazing. Graphics are crazy good. Animations are crazy good. Some questions, like there's supposed to be a different animation when you use a Quicksilver Flask. I might be the only one, but I didn't see it. So maybe I'll have to watch it a few times before I notice. But we're going to focus on this video on Ultimatum. So there's a lot of things happening. I will try to keep this video short. So I'm not going to go through everything that I've done in the past because there is so much. Instead, I will ask you to check this link out, which will be in the descriptions below. I'm sure you've already seen it, as well as watch the trailer. I'm sure you've already seen it. Otherwise, you're not here to look at my take on it. So I'm going to pick out the most important things that I've seen, and I'm going to discuss those instead. And I don't even know where to start. There are a lot of changes happening. 2 leaks ago, Chris Wilson said that we're going to have shorter patch notes. Then we got an expansion release, which had a pretty extensive patch notes release, which is fine because it's an expansion. How on earth do they plan on making this shorter patch notes? I don't know. There's so much happening. It is absolutely crazy. I think a lot of it is good, and I think a lot of it has a lot of flaws. So I made some notes on how I feel, and we're going to go through those notes and read them. Let's see. No, this is the notes. Right. So I'm just going to read from the notes here, and we're going to discuss that. So the first part is Ritual Going Core that I picked up that I wanted to talk about. And I think that Ritual Going Core is obnoxious. I think it's disgusting. I think that they are making a huge mistake by putting it as a core mechanic. And to elaborate on my opinions around this, first off, it is a very simple mechanic, which is perfectly fine. I have no problems with that being a thing in the game. Like, I have no problems with that whatsoever. My biggest problem with Ritual Going Core has nothing to do with ritual mechanic per se. It's the fact that we have such an insane amount of league mechanics in the game that they are now bringing it down from a 10% chance of encountering one of these mechanics to 8%. And you're just shoving in more and more mechanics into the game, which is just so obnoxious. Imagine a new player coming in playing the game, and they have 8% to encounter one out of like bazillion different freaking old league mechanics. It's just so weird. And I was actually expecting them to either start to remove things from the core game, or start to cycle them in a way where this league we're going to have this and that league mechanic being available, and the next league will have this and that, because eventually they're going to have too much. I thought we'd reach the point of that being too much. Apparently not. So they're making Ritual Core. That's my problem with it. So it's not a big topic, but that's my personal feeling and opinions on it. And I think that's something I wanted to bring up because most other things are rather straightforward and logical. So I'm going to take out the things that I feel would be up for discussion. So I would like to hear you guys' opinions on all the topics that I'm bringing up, and let me know in the comments below. In the first one is basically Ritual Going Core, yay or nay, basically. So let me know of your opinions in the comments below. I will read through all the comments. And then the next part would be the reward rework, which is massive. Now, I've always been a person that loves doing endgame bosses in games like this. I do boss services and whatnot. I've always done that in Path of Exile for my, 7 years and 26,000 hours in this game. That's what I do. I love doing that, and I love making guides, and I love crafting. So those are my core things that I work on. Reward rework on bosses. I mean, I started off with farming up Ubert Siri as a goddamn summoner build, and that was amazing. And then a couple of days later, it was made completely useless to even bother doing the fight. With these reward reworks and the fact that you can't multi-box in the Uncharted Realms, for example, to do those endgame farming with 6-man rotations, I think that these changes could actually be very, very, very enjoyable to do for endgame boss farming. So I think the reward rework is really, really, really good for all the league mechanics. There has been some that we do need to talk about a little bit more that has some insane impacts, and that is most importantly beast splitting. Now, to my understanding, you could imprint an item and be split. Well, not to my understanding. I know you could do this. Just I made like 400 ones lastly. You can imprint an item and then split it, and then you could, if you got the bot in a copy, you imprinted back the original one, and you had two of them, and you rinse and repeat that process till you had, till your heart's content, basically. This also promoted the idea of multi-boxing beast farming, which was a big problem during 3.13, which is absolutely disgusting. However, the new system, to my understanding, you can still imprint, but my understanding, the item itself can't be re-imprinted, but I'm not sure if you're able to bring that new base back to its original state, but still keep the split version. I'm not sure if that works. We'll have to test that, of course, but at least you can get the base item without the modifier split into two versions. So the good thing with this is that for many leagues, a lot of us that plays the game a lot, and a lot of the 1% player bases, have used this system or this mechanic to print mirrors worth of currency per week. I'm not even kidding. Multiple mirrors per week, easily. It's so easy to do, and it's so simple, and you make so much currency, it's disgusting. So removing that is a good thing for that, because it kind of skewered the entire economy. And why it's skewering it is because when the rich community in PoE has a fuckload of currency and something turns meta or something becomes extremely lucrative to run, those people dictates the prices of that specific mechanic or that way of playing. And the more currency those people have, the more expensive those things will be to run. And the more expensive those things will be to do, the less people do it, which heavily impacts casual players. Now, another aspect of that's the good thing that's being fixed, and I've been expecting this to happen a lot sooner. However, the negative impact of this is that what beast splitting has done to the community on the good side for the casual players has been in a point of view that you actually had cheap 6-link white sockets astral plates. You had access to Vol Regalia's +1 maximum Spectre's chest pieces. You had access to all of these 6-link bases for a very, very affordable price. Now, the downside of that was obviously that anything else that dropped that you could 6-link was not worth looking at, because you could just buy yourself a 6 white socket 6-link astral plate, because that was cheap, thanks to beast splitting. Now, so that's the negative part, is that it is now going to be harder to achieve these things, but it's also going to be on the good side, whereas other items now will actually have a value to bother looking at. So it kind of fixes some aspects, or a little bit, at least a fraction of the itemization issues that we have in the game, which is what a lot of these fixes or changes are actually attending to. But it will make it harder for people to achieve these endgame chess pieces. People will settle with whatever +1 Spectre chess pieces. People will settle with you starting to use unique chess pieces, which increases the value of unique 6-links, for example, like Belly of the Beast and whatnot, Carcass Jack, and all of these standardized, or hell, even the Lore Weave, for example, will start to see more of an appearance on people of the endgame. And I think that's a really good thing, as beast splitting is not going to spam up, so everybody uses 6-link white socket astral plates, for example. So it's a pro and con, and I think it's mostly good for the community, but it does heavily impact the idea of certain specific items that are very hard to achieve will now be much harder to achieve for casual players. Other things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to reward rework is the additional unique items from certain in-game bosses, like Uber here, mostly because I love that fight. I think it's great. The problem with new uniques is obviously that in more cases than not, they turn into 1 chaos or vendor items, and hopefully that's not going to be the case, depending on the strength of these items and how they're going to be played. So there's a lot of aspects around that, and it usually depends on the value or the power gain of those items that will dictate these reward reworks to be worth it, because otherwise the reward rework basically just means that you're just going to have another item in the pool that you're going to vendor. This brings me to other items that when it comes to the itemization issues, this brings me to another topic, and that is the Headhunter. I have been wanting, and I believe that I can't say a majority of the player base. I can't speak for that. I don't know the numbers. I do know that a very large portion of the community is advocating for a nerf to Headhunters, because it is a bit freaking obnoxious. So that's something that we want, and it seems like the balance team at GGG has confirmed that they actually are on board with the idea of actually nerfing Headhunter, but we have Chris Almighty Wilson putting down the foot saying, no, we're going to keep it as obnoxiously overpowered as it is. Now, I don't personally agree with this. I think Headhunter is absolutely insane. The buff that they're giving Headhunter is actually drop rate. It will now not be gated just behind Nemesis. It can drop anywhere, which allows people to chance orbit or ancient orbit without being in a Nemesis map. It allows people to drop it normally from any map they're running, which means that people will still be able to target farm it. And people will still be doing that, but it's also going to increase the volume of Headhunters on the market because it can also drop from all the other content from people that are not specifically target farming the belt itself. And I think that might result, there's a risk that it results in an overflow of Headhunters very earlier than normal on the market, and therefore it will go down in price, and they will see more people using Headhunters. And I'm not sure if that's what they intended to be. Obviously, this depends on the drop rates of the belt. With these changes, maybe they'll make it even rarer to drop to counteract this. I'm not sure. We'll see, but that's just my take on what I heard during the stream regarding Headhunter. Again, if you guys have any other opinions, or if you agree with me, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on these things, because all of this is up for discussion. There is so much to talk about. I wanted to talk about Ultimatum a bit as a league mechanic. To me, it felt like they are consistently pushing out the idea of deterministically choosing your rewards, which I think is a really good system. I think it's great what they're doing with the item drops as well. The problem, though, that I saw with Ultimatum is that you can play in a party where all party members get to choose their own reward and get that allocated to them. And what this promotes is the use of websites like PoE2.com, for example, is great for service runs, where people will just stack up and get yourself an aura bot. Or unless we'll see the patch notes, of course, unless they touch hard on the aura stackers, people will play aura stacking to survive everything easily. And you just have an aura bot with you, or you play an aura stacker, and you basically do that, and you get a full clear of it. And that's pretty crazy. But what's even, I think that's fine. I really do. I think it's fine, because it's kind of the idea with the reward versus risk, unless you have, the big dick in-game characters will handle everything. But I think it's a cool system. What I don't like about Ultimatum, from what I saw, was that there was one of these Ultimatum's specific maps where you could double your currency. Double your currency. This means only one thing. I'm getting 10 mirrors, and I'm putting 10 mirrors in there. And I'm having a super decked out aura bot with me, and we're creating 20 mirrors out of that. And then we'll buy another one of those maps, and we're happy, very happy to pay 500 Exaltas for one of those maps, because we're going to make 10 mirrors out of it. I hope they will not allow us to put mirrors in it. That's all I'm saying. If they do not allow mirrors in this thing, I think it's really good. Maps are pre-roll, currency selective. Yeah, but the thing is, what I'm saying is, if you have mirrors, have one of those with mirrors, and you can buy that for 500x. All I'm saying, the chat is basically saying that they're pre-roll, and basically what happens is you have a map that doubles your currency, but it's predetermined which currency orb that is that you get doubled. So in the video, it's an exalted orb. All I'm saying is that if one of those exists with a mirror roll, people would be more than happy to pay, 1,000 exalted for it, because they're going to put a stack of 10 mirrors in it. And that's not very hard to achieve for people that play a lot in this game. I'm not sure. We'll see, because they don't have all the information of what exists, right? So we'll see what happens. Hopefully that's not going to be a thing, because it would just be so sad if that exists. Other than that, I think that Ultimatum is pretty cool. I think that it's a pretty generic approach. I think it's a very simple way of doing it. But honestly, I'm personally more hyped about the reward reworks more so than Ultimatum. So that's just my take on it so far. The other things I wanted to talk about real quick is 3 other things that I wanted to mention that I picked up that I think was really important to talk about. And one is new skills. There are 8 new gems. Some of them look pretty cool, but we'll see how they fare, right? So all I'm saying is that if you get the new, like the blood abilities, but usually, and more often than not, they do introduce abilities with a little bit stronger than they perhaps should be to make them more attractive to play with. We've seen this with Essence Drink Contagion. We've seen this with other builds that we've seen with with the Impale stuffs and whatnot. We've also seen the complete opposite. such as spectral shield throw, which was absolute garbage. So we'll see how these looks. Some of them, the thematic approach of these gems looked absolutely insane. So I'm very hyped about that. So I'm definitely going to be trying at least one or two out early on, and probably going to run them all eventually because some of them looked absolutely incredible. Another thing I wanted to mention was the Veiled mod Chaos Orb? Veiled mod Chaos Orb? Which apparently gave you a Unveiled modifier. And what they've done with Unveiled modifier is that Unveiled modifiers is essentially better than the crafting mod. And apparently it was super, super rare, but was also in a situation where the mods gained from those was much better than what you could get otherwise. And you get to choose between 3, right, when you avail an item. What that means is that people is basically going to take, say, a ring, and what they're going to do is they're going to do this, and they're going to see like, oh, but I have fire resistance and intelligence that I really think is good. And then they're going to take suffix can't be changed and do that on it. And then they're going to use this Chaos Orb on it, which will keep the suffixes, but since there's only 2, it's going to re-roll another suffix and use a Chaos Orb on it. And the result of doing this is that the suffixes that exist on the item cannot be changed, which in this case is the 32 intelligence, 28 fire res. So if I use a Chaos Orb, or in this case a Veiled Chaos Orb, those 2 modifiers will be kept, and it will re-roll the rest of the item and add a Veiled modifier to it. So doing this, as you can see, we still have the 32 intelligence and 28 fire res, and we got ourselves a tier 3 flat energy shield and increased attack speed tier 1. And one of these modifiers would have been a Veiled modifier, according to this system with those Chaos Orbs, which is supposedly very, very strong. I think I kind of like the idea of that, because what happens if you get like a really good modifier that you can work with, and then you can start fine-tuning it from there, and if you do it on a non-influence modifier, then you can actually start using Harvest Crafts for it. There's some pretty cool mechanics around that. So we'll see how that goes and what kind of Veiled modifiers people will go for. Just another way of crafting, but that brings me to the idea of crafting for this game is already extremely complex, and the Veiled mod Chaos Orbs, which apparently is supposed to be super, super rare, right, is still in a situation where it's just another extremely complex way of crafting, because the way to utilize it the best is to have certain modifiers that you want on a pre-crafted base item, then use the orb by utilizing meta crafts to block off and safeguard certain mods on your item. And I think those type of craftings is fun, but I've also crafted for many, many years in this game. New players or newer players or people that are not too interested in crafting, or perhaps the people that learned how to craft thanks to Harvest, will pretty much never do it. I don't know. I kind of feel a bit... I liked Harvest because of it introducing crafting to new players that didn't craft before, and I feel like they're cutting that off, cutting the legs off those people that don't want to craft in the ways that people did before Harvest, like myself. I don't mind that crafting personally, but I think it's bad for the community in general. Which brings us back to the Harvest topic, which we'll try to avoid. We're going to talk about Ultimatum and PoE2 in this video. Another thing, the last thing I wanted to talk about is how are the changes that we see going to affect new players versus experienced players. Now, we know that the top-end currency making has always been Delve. Next to Delve has been Splitting. Both of those have been nerfed. Splitting has been completely neglected, completely ruined, which is great, in my opinion, but it does have some negative impacts, which we talked about. And deeper delving is going to have some issues in the fact that it's not going to be as lucrative, but it's still going to be lucrative, but just not as much, which I think is a very good way to do it. But they have increased value of other things, like lab running will be very, very cool, and I think a lot more people will run lab, which means that specific lab enchants and whatnot will decrease in value, but it also should mean that more of these bases with proper enchants will actually exist on the market, and maybe more people will do it. So it's a pro and con situation. This Asuka, thanks so much for the 18 months, man. All good, yes. Thank you very much.
All good.
So I think that newer players, or I'm not gonna say new players, but newer players or casual players, or whatever you want to translate them to or describe them as, I think that a lot of these changes will be good for them. They're able to farm their own enchants. They're able to run their own content. And they're able to achieve these things thanks to the buff of all the core mechanics. And I think that's really good. I love the itemization reworks that they're doing. I think it's great. And I think it's great that the top end players is going to get their legs chopped off by having deeper delves being less lucrative. as well as beast splitting not being possible in the same extent. So I think that there's a lot of good things happening with these things. But, that's just the way I see it from, an hour after we watched the stream. So again, I want to hear you guys' opinion about this. So please do let me know in the comments below. I want to hear that. Plus, it helps the YouTube algorithm. So just smack a comment and hit the like button, subscribe for more content. I'd appreciate that. I think that a lot of the changes are great, but there are some issues with it. Thanks so much, Grand Theft Pizza, with the 5 months Prime. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers most of the things. Did they address multi-box and animated witness? Yes. Only the map owner will get the witness, which is great. And multi-boxing beast is not going to be as lucrative because, again, the beast splitting was the bigger one. I think that these are great. I really do. But again, I think that a lot of it depends on the power gain from certain rewards, such as the league mechanic drops with the increased efficiency of essences. I think essences will be more and more used in crafting, but it all goes together hand in hand with what the meta of crafting will be. Obviously, I'll be posting up a lot of crafting guides for the community. I have a link in the description below to my crafting guides, including written guides as well, which will be extensive before the league releases and during the league release. And I think that it's going to be fun to do, but I think that a lot of the reworked rewards, the efficiency of them will be based around the way the crafting meta will form. That's how I think it's. That's what I think is going to happen in Ultimatum League. I am very hyped. I am very, very hyped about this. I like the idea of it. I think that it's a cool system. I love the new idea with the I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it, but this machination shield. And I love the idea of the Vol Reliquary keys, as well as the new abilities. It's going to be very fun to explore, and I love the changes of the mechanics. But again, there are some things I didn't like. To avoid ranting for too long, I hope you guys enjoyed my take on it, or if you didn't, please, again, let me know in the comments below, and we'll have some discussions in the comment sections, and we'll see if we can collect the community's opinions on these things. I did just pick out some of the stuff I wanted to bring up and discuss, because I think the rest is pretty much straightforward. If you feel that there's some topic that you guys have seen or that has been talked about on the release of this that you think I should have brought up, let me know in the comments below as well. And again, hit the like button or you'll never drop an Exalted Orb ever again, and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe, keep rocking.